Okay, so pretty much what you want to do, if you want to increase the logging with JIRA, it's cd opt. It's your install directory, your log4j. So install scn JIRA. And it's in your web INF file. So it's cd scn JIRA cd web classes. Right. And then if you look at your log4j, I already made the entries. All you really need to do is certain spots that you have to increase. So if you looked at this right here, so the first spot is I've changed the root logging level from warn to debug. Now this is everything at the root to increase it. There's a couple of other things that other places I increased it. Just as a catch-all, typically the root log will be sufficient, but I've always added additional places. Let's take a look. Okay, so I've also changed the security log because we're having issues with crowd and accessing crowd. So I wanted to increase the security log in JIRA. So if you look at it, I've modified, basically what I did is I copied a line, I commented this line out, and then I changed it to debug. So when I come back, I'm going to comment this line out and uncomment this line and remove my name so it could actually go back to the way it was. So I modified the security logs. I also modified the JIRA login information. Again, because we were having issues with the login information, I wanted to look at specifically target the login entries. And there was one more spot that I changed it, which is at the top of Atlassian, I changed the debug from warning to debug. So those are the 4 places that I've changed the updates. Okay. Save file. Then after you make the changes, you have to restart JIRA for it to become effective. Now, there's 2 ways to increase logging. Right? So the first way is the way I showed you, which is through the log4j properties. You could also do it through the GUI. If you log into JIRA and you go into security, you can always increase logging. But remember, that is a temporary solution. Once you bounce JIRA, it will reset itself. If you do it from the log4j properties, it becomes permanent until you change it back. Right? Any questions?
Yeah. So on the logging levels that you can make from the front end, the changes, those. I mean, is it basically the same? Do you have the same capacity to do the same thing that you can on the back end, or does the back end provide more options?
Good question. Let's go into the system. The backend provides much more finer details of what you could do.
Right.
You always increase your logging levels in here. So if you
Login profiling. Okay. Nothing there.
yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Let's look at something. Okay, let me log in. System is a little slow. So if you go into routine health check its value system. Okay, let's check that. I'll go into the logging. You can always turn additional logging here. Enable loggings, profiling. Here is pretty much the information that we had before. So I went into crowd directory. I could turn on debug for crowd directory. I could turn on where I did the comment listing JIRA. Right now, I could put it to debug. Right, take a look at all the information. Steal stuff. Where is security? Here's the security. I can put this into debug mode.
What's the difference between all these? What's the difference between trace, info, warn, error?
All right, that's a good question. Debug is pretty much it'll capture every single information that you have there. Pretty much on when you when it starts executing, if there's always an action that it's running in the background. You may not see it in the logs because it only captures certain information. So for instance, if you capture info will only capture information that's associated with starting the system, and any relevant information. If there's an error, a critical error, it will capture that. It won't capture maybe missing classes or security token issues, anything that's specific to an issue. It will tell you that you're unable to log in. But if you want additional information, then you go into debug because it'll basically every single line that it's doing, it'll capture it, and it will capture the response for every single action or commit that it's trying to run.
Mm-hmm.
Warning is it will capture any information that sometimes you may have a warning. For instance, it may say that the plugin is uh, maybe the plugin is supported, but it's going to be deprecated, right? So it's a warning saying that you may have to upgrade later on. Typically, you may not find that on info, but if you want to say, show me all the warnings, it will show you that up to that level as well.
Okay.
Right? If you notice, I have my JIRA log in debug mode. It also has this in debug mode because this is what uh, the what we changed on the back end. Right? So it puts it in debug. If you make the changes here, it will be temporarily. Once you restart JIRA, it automatically read what's in the log file, log4j property files, and it will put it back to debug. So don't think, okay, I made the changes. I'm getting a lot of logs. I want to put it back to normal state. If you come into the system, yeah, it'll
Mm-hmm.
go back to normal state. But as soon as you restart JIRA or restart the server, it will default back to what's in the log4j properties. So you really want to uh, make those changes permanently and make them in a property file.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I'm set. Any other questions?
No,
Let me
not on
stop.
this piece.
I'm going to stop recording.